Okay. So we were having a little bit of
Can't hear you.
a can you all hear me? Hey there. I want to see if you all can hear me. Can If you can hear me, can you just type that in the text box? Okay, perfect. Yay. All right. Yay. Good. Good. Okay. I am like I bring all of my inauspiciousness to technology. I'm like bad a bad omen wrapped in, I don't know, something nasty. Um, Yay. Okay, perfect. Great. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here for this session, and um, yeah, I wasn't able to be here last night. Um, uh, I and but from what I understand, it was good for people to be able to share. And so Rod is going to join in at about 8:30. And I was thinking we could just do a little bit of a guided visualization just to settle into this space. So try to allow yourself to get as comfortable as you can in your body. If you want to lay down, feel free to do that. And allow yourself to settle into your body through breathing. And try and allow yourself to take a couple of deep inhalations. And as you do that, inhale whatever it is that you need right now. And as you exhale, exhale out whatever it is that you need to say goodbye to right now. So if you need love or compassion, if you need patience or a presence that's soothing, inhale that and allow yourself to just hold that gently, and exhale all that's hard, whatever it is you don't need. And it seems like in these days, there's a lot that we don't need. So just inhale what it is that you need and exhale what it is that you don't need. Inhale the resources that benefit you right now. Exhale that which is not beneficial for you. And as you exhale, let that really feel like it's leaving you. And you can visualize it as like a mucky liquid, or sometimes in texts they say like frogs and snakes and bugs. But this is kind of about purifying. And we're going to do a little bit of a purification practice. Just going to move into that. So inhale whatever it is that you need. Exhale that which is no longer beneficial. Inhale what you consent to. And exhale what you do not consent to. Allow yourself to settle into this moment. And if you can, we're going to do a little bit of Vajrasattva practice. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this practice. And this is just going to be kind of a loose, easy, guided visualization. So imagine that you are sitting, and again, this is just imagined, in full lotus position on a multicolored lotus. You're sitting on a flat sun disk, a white disk on a multicolored lotus. And you are the Bodhisattva or Buddha, Vajrasattva, the Buddha of complete innate purity. Right? And it's not purity that you get by giving up who you are. It's just innate. It's naturally arising within you. It's automatic. And so you're the color of a full moon. So this kind of luminous white light color. You have two hands. One is holding a vajra right at the level of your heart. Sometimes like this, the vajra right there. Sometimes it could be out a little bit. And a bell, a ganta, right at your hip, kind of resting on your thigh. And then you have a crown. It's splendorous, and silks and ornaments. Your hair is up in a top knot. You're beautiful to behold. And your essence is complete purity, naturally rising. Imagine that in your heart center, there's a small form of Vajrasattva, just like you, sitting in your heart. And if you can, imagine that your body is a body of light, rainbow-like, translucent, completely perfect as it is. Nothing to add, nothing to take away. And we're going to recite Vajrasattva's mantra together, and it's a short, easy mantra. Om Benza Sato Om. I'm going to write it in the text box. Om Benza Sato Om. So this is a short Vajrasattva mantra. And we're just going to do this 108 times. And as we do it, try and allow the vibration of the mantra to resonate deeply through your presence. And try and allow a swirling white light from your heart just expand outward to care for you and your immediate environment, and then outwards to care for all beings. Purifying them, removing the obstacles that may arise, removing sickness, removing negative karma, removing hate, intolerance, filling everything with light. And let's do this gently together. Om Bedza Sato Hum. 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 And as we do this, allow yourself to simultaneously be completely purified of anything that's in the way. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Any blockages. Om Benzo Sato Hum. 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 Allow your body to fill up with white light. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Om Benzo Sato Hum. And you remain luminous. Om Benzo Sato Hum. 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 And allow yourself to touch deeply into the heart of your innate purity. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Naturally free. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Liberated. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Like a spring rising up within you, just constantly. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Om Benzo Sato Hum. And the light moves out. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Purifying the environment. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Bringing balance where balance is needed. Healing where healing is needed. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Om Benzo Sato Hum. Gently liberating everything that it touches. Om Benzo Sato Hum. 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 And then imagine that your body, again, filled with this naturally arising, pure, healing, liberating light begins to transform into rainbow light, which begins to fade, move outward, and you're left with a direct experience of mind, your own mind, pure, free, expansive, vast, awake, fluid, resilient, powerful. And rest in that for a couple of moments. Um, so before I go any further, Aisha asked what the significance of 108 times is. So typically there are 108 beads on a mala or a rosary. Um, and actually, to be honest, the complete reason why I don't know, but that's just kind of the standard. Um, so I was just telling you the beads on this mala, um, but I will look that up and get back to you. So I just wanted to offer that as a way of kind of creating a little bit of ground for the container. Okay, Rachel, yeah, that comes from 108 names of the goddesses. Um, so yeah, I think what I just want to name my lack of ability, um, before we started, and that I don't see my being here as, um, a authority figure necessarily at all, but somebody who wants to be able to hold space um, for whatever may be coming up um, today for everybody. Um, I'm not exactly sure what's happening at this particular moment, but I do know my wife is glued to the TV, and it's looking like there's a good chance that Biden will pull through, which doesn't, it's not necessarily the most perfect thing, but it's better than Trump, perhaps. And I know that people have all sorts of feelings. I know I've had all sorts of feelings in the past 24 hours, and of course, leading up to this. But I will just say one thing, um, that sometimes in the face of uncertainty, in the face of difficult emotion, um, there's really no better time to practice. Um, I've met some of my teachers have, had to go through the process of being forced out of their country of origin, Tibet, and you know, against their will, um, in order to be safe, in order to be able to continue their role. In some cases, being separated from their families and experiencing great sadness and loss, as a result, and kind of having to live with that over the course of their lives. Um, and there's something really powerful about bringing practice to that which is really hard. You know, not always the most pleasant, definitely. Um, but those times when we're just angry or sad or like completely bewildered, um, or just really don't know what to make sense of. Like, this system of ours is like broken. Maybe it was never right. Um, you know, so I'm not going to pontificate. I just want to say that in my own times of loss and hardship and fear and being with other people who have gone through that, trying to come into walk into that space along with this desire to want to be free, to get liberated, and to be open to all of the shit, to all that's hard and messed up and everything that we don't want to have to deal with. um, is really profound. But so, again, I'm just speaking from my own experience. I'm not saying everybody should do that necessarily. But I just want to kind of, give some space for people to share what it is that might be alive. And so if you feel like sharing anything, you can enter that into the questions box or into the text area. Yeah, I can say that my root teacher, um, was suffered a lot in her life. She was in abusive relationships before she became a nun. She had a child out of wedlock, somebody who was much darker than her. This was in India, and her family, couldn't forgive that. Eventually, they did, but she was left more or less, alone to care for her daughter, to raise her daughter. Um, was a dear sister for me. Um, and through all of the it's like this path of her difficulty and the path of her suffering brought her eventually to this need to try and do whatever she could to get free. um, and that worked, and she really was able to get free. She incredibly realized. um, and it's powerful to be able to do that. um, you know Payne asks, or says, if Biden wins, how not to take that as the end, but how to build on that. That's alive for Payne. Yeah, yeah, and in one way, you know, Biden almost just kind of like waltzed right into his, um, into being the nominee. There are so many really good people. But yeah, how to build on what's possible, at least. The break of this kind of Trump insanity and building on that. I'm curious, is anybody feeling angry or numb. I was feeling numb this morning. I was feeling very dejected last night, um, upset and frustrated. Brenda, it says, during this time of chaos, I've been able to appreciate my practices. Yesterday, I was full of anxiety. I have practices most of today, and all I have to say is that I appreciate. I'm grateful for the space in Bhumisparsha. Yeah, well, thank you, Brenda. I mean, you do so much for this community and for the space as well. Um, Powerlessness is alive. Exhausted. Yeah, totally. Baffled that it wasn't a landslide against Trump. Yeah. Um, I mean, like it's insane that it's coming down to like razors, like thin thing. Andrew, I live in the South and it's pretty wild here. Yeah, how not to fall back asleep, you know? And it's true, like, how monstrous Trump is. He's unmasked the truth of lies in the system. Thank you, Lorena. Yeah, I mean, and then Aisha writes, I took off work this week to have time to experience whatever came up, but I would have much preferred to be busy when considering intoxicants. Fifth precept, how is it possible to not use work as an escape from reality? How many realities are there out there outside of the ultimate and relative? Yeah, I mean, you know, I've definitely used work as a intoxicating distraction at times because it can be that way. Um, that's hard. I had Monday off, um, and I really try to use it for self care. Um, I think sometimes it could be quite helpful sometimes to kind of try and simultaneously hold what's coming up while also caring for ourselves. And I know that that can feel um, less than in a time when we have to be. It might feel like we need to be fighting. Um, but I think it's important to remember sometimes that our body, our physical body, our emotional body, our spiritual body, is a container that holds the seed of our Buddhahood, this kind of like nascent seed, our Buddha nature, that which begins to unfurl into complete awakening, right? And so sometimes we need to be really careful about overwhelming ourselves. Um, and in some texts, some meditation texts, um, we read that it's really important to make sure that we have nutritious diet, that we get sleep, that our body is healthy. Um, and some Tibetan texts that are rooted in medical practices or connected to medical practices, that we rely on the medicines, plant medicines and others that are helpful for us. Um, in the tantric tradition, um, our body should be considered the body of a deity, right? Because it becomes a Buddha, and that all the energies in our bodies um, are no different than all the different kinds of tantric deities that exist. And so, taking time to slow down and care for ourselves is not always like equal to being complacent. That can be a practice in and of itself. So I tried to do that uh, on Monday, and then I worked part of Tuesday. second half of Tuesday, and last night I tried to do that for myself and for my family. Um, so I mean that can be helpful. Um, and I hear what you're saying, Lorena, about you know how this is not surprising. You know, um, Katie worrying about right-wing militias. Aisha feeling like half the people who voted secretly loathe you, which doesn't leave room for a great deal of trust. Yeah, 1 in 2 people eligible to vote. Yes, I know, and that is like, I mean, and to Lorena's point, like it's insane and it's not surprising, and that's scary, and that's also the way it's been, right? There's something Trump did do about like kind of normalizing the public display of so much hate, um, that has opened a lot of people's eyes. But yeah, when you look at the numbers, not that many people. You know, Eddie's feeling angry and betrayed. Right now, all skin folk are not kinfolk. Yeah, and Kamala Harris. I mean, she's flawed. Yeah, I know. I know. This is Laura feeling powerless and unsurprised. Rachel feeling strangely calm, belonging to a progressive religious community in North Carolina, about to build coalitions around different deeply felt issues that need changing, particularly related to systemic racism. With Biden can dig in and build relationships and work like crazy. If Trump were to stay on, that would have been like climbing a mountain of sharp blades. Feeling hopeful. Feeling like the work for our own liberation and helping our communities become liberated, and then maybe systems can change. Yeah, the change must start on the grassroots. Yes, and yes. Yeah, I mean, and I think like again for this session and as we as a community kind of move forward, I think that it's important for all of us to remember too that like this is a highly experimental community, and there is room for Bhumisparsha to do some of this work. Um, yeah, yeah, and I hear you too with that. Um, Lorena writes that she's feeling she doesn't know how to untangle herself from the white supremacist capitalist system without living with a begging bowl, which might be the most sane thing to do and also scary. Not ready for that either. Yes. Oh, that's Rod.
Hey, 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 hey,
How are you?
hey. Good, 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 good. Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah. So we were just, giving room for sharing and processing,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of stuff in the text box.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of I've been noticing a lot of guilt today.
Mm.
Um, and I keep thinking about what Rinpoche would say sometimes, where how things would be so much easier if it wasn't for other people. you know, and this is why for years this is how I've thought about living collectively in communities, living in a society and a culture. It's like there's me and there's other people,
Mhm.
And I always have to remember that, and that I don't always get what I want or need. Absolutely. Don't believe me. I know that I don't get what I need. Um, and having periods like this, I know that, you know, we're moving, the elections may probably just turn out, you know, and I've been like perplexed all day about Georgia turning blue. I'm like, I grew up there. That's impossible. That's impossible. Did the people I grew up not vote? Because, um, but yeah, like I go back to compassion. Compassion always is what's holding me. You know, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of suffering in the world, and I need to like show up to that. And say, yeah, this is supposed to happen. This is samsara. And a lot of folks, have not done the work to really get samsara. That samsara is the cycle of birth and rebirth and delusion and ignorance. This is what samsara does, and I have to stop expecting it to do something other than this, you know. Um, And we're born into situations, we're born into families and circumstances that are not of our choosing, and we have to make hard decisions about how to be in a relationship to folks around us. Um, you know, um, I'm just reading through all the comments and everything. You know, um, I think about too. Um, the incredible amount of work liberation takes. Not just social liberation, but when you add the spiritual ultimate liberation on top of that, like we have to realize like how much effort it takes. Like I mean, I can't even begin to conceptualize or articulate the amount of work that I've done to be okay, right now. Um, for forget money. Like I'm talking about just effort and years and all the hours of sitting on the cushion, you know, all this effort of just over and over and over again returning to the mind, returning to the hurts, returning to the woundedness, offering it space, calling the mother, calling Tara, doing cha, like doing the aspiration prayers, doing the Mahamudra work, doing the rituals, doing the chanting, just moving deeper and deeper and deeper into the essence and the nature of the mind, and having those experiences of the nature of the mind begins to free us bit by bit from attachment and fixation, or as I learned growing up, what's also been helpful is that the world is not my home. you know as we used to sing growing up, this is something I'm passing through. you know but what do we do individually to create the life that we need to create, and how do we get with other people to start working collectively? you know and how do you find that space of thriving even within conditions that are not of our choosing? I think so many of us have a lot of work to do in terms of holding space for contradictions as well. I think it's important to be worried about, yeah, this is a lot of kinds of organizing, particularly with militias and so forth, right? Again, I grew up in Georgia. I grew up around Klan. I grew up around Aryan Nation folks, you know. And so, in many ways, like I just, I'm in one way, I'm really appreciative of growing up in the South because, like, I grew up with firsthand data that America wasn't this really liberated, realized, awakened place, you know. And what Dharma taught me as I got older was that, like, if I want to see the change that I want to see, then, you know, I had to do work. There was work that was required. Um, I think there's the work that we're doing in our personal lives and, as lay people. But for me, I had to enter into that extremity of work. Like I had to go into the kind of work where everyone was like, "Oh, you're off, you're gone." Where people were like, "Rod, how can we ever be in a relationship with you again? Because you're just doing the stuff that we don't understand." You know, you go out into the desert, really. You go out into the desert of practice and you're just like, am I doing this wrong? you know, why do I have to give up so much to get free? And that in that desert, that's where I began to understand liberation, to experience liberation, to experience the spaciousness. That's where I began to experience the blessings of the Lama, of the deities. That's where I began to have the insight into the nature of reality that made it so much more. It made it easier for me to be here, because I don't take this all so seriously anymore.
Mhm.
You know, when people hate me because of my race or my queerness, I'm like, that's ridiculous. Is that what you're gonna do with this precious life? Is hate me? To react to your own fear, your own woundedness by trying to hurt me. That's like a complete waste of your life. And I organize against that by holding all of that within compassion and by doing what I can to set boundaries. Like I refuse to return the hate that I've been shown in this life. Now I may get real sassy and dramatic and petty, and you've all seen me do that. That's not coming from a place of wanting people to hurt. It's coming from a place of wanting people to see, to reflect back to people what they're trying to give to me. You know.
I think there's so much about in what you just said about in relationship to Clarissa's, statement about the samsaric world continually breaking
Mhm.
their heart. Is like, we can't take responsibility for samsara, but we can take responsibility for our relationship to it. And that's a lot of what practice is kind of knowing that samsara is just kind of going to give us a lot of shit, and there's a certain point where we begin to understand or recognize, like, I just, it's like, this is a crazy ride. It's not about getting off of it. It's about being able to even get bigger than it,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
not to really change the dynamic,
Yeah.
and it's not that it transforms the world, but it transforms the heart,
Mhm.
and it gives an example
Mhm.
for others to be able to be more whatever they need to be, to hurt less, to hurt themselves less, to hurt other people less, to um, not be so unconscious
Yeah.
and stuck, in this thing that just will
Mhm.
constantly spin.
Mhm.
And I think that's the weird thing about, like, our elections. I don't know what
Mhm.
it's like in other places, because I've, maybe India, but, like,
Mhm.
we put so much external hope. We
Mhm.
externalize, like, everything onto these events, and then
Mhm.
when they don't work,
Yeah.
or when we're like, "Holy shit, man!
Mhm.
50% of the country voted for Trump.
Mhm.
That's fucked up." Or,
Mhm.
like, just under 49%.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we're surprised,
Yeah.
but it's there's something in that too. It's like putting all of our hopes that somebody else will save us.
Yeah.
That somebody else will do the work, or that
Mhm.
somebody else will change us.
Mhm.
It's a little bit like how this sangha came into creation.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you and I saying,
Mhm.
well, we're not going to wait for somebody else to do this,
Mhm.
to, plant a seed.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and that kind of, like, activity required, and like you shared, like, all of the hard work you put in,
Yeah.
um, it's not going to be given to us.
Mm-mm.
We all need to go
Mhm.
out into the desert,
Yeah.
and as a sangha, the sangha goes into a desert. If we do that, we can do a lot, you know. But if we expect
Mhm.
external force to do it for us,
Yeah.
nothing's going to happen.
We Don't Need Another Hero is like one of my theme songs. Um, we don't need another hero. We just need to find our way home. And Tina, listen, that's the power anthem of the '80s. Y'all
Mhm.
need to get with Miss Tina, right? And I just like that song. Even when I was little, that song was always super sad because it was like, you know, it was just really telling us that, like, stop relying on people,
Mhm.
like, become your own hero. I've been listening to that. I listened to that a lot, quite a bit at the beginning of quarantine. Um, how do I rely on myself? Right. And we're brokenhearted and disappointed. Well, don't waste it.
Mhm.
Use it, fuel the practice. And we have to ask ourselves, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to? I had to. Those are the questions I was confronting in my 20s. Is like, what am I going to do? Because I don't know how I'm going to get through the rest of my life. You know. And when you let go and you step out into the desert of practice, it's the scariest thing. You will lose so much. I can't even like articulate how much I've lost. How many relationships I've had to give up because of practice. All the years,
Mhm.
you know, all the deaths in my family that I've not been able to be present with, and all the, you know, the transitions in my family that I'm not around for, and haven't been around for because I've dedicated myself to this path. Like, you have to be willing to lose things. And it sombers you. Like, it's well, somber, not somber, but sobering. It's sober. It's very sobering, to choose freedom over the concerns of life.
Mhm.
Because I can't do both. Even folks, these great teachers who tried to do both, there was still sacrifice,
Mhm.
right? Even you think about Matrick Ladrin, right? Who was like, had kids, had a husband, but was like, listen, I'm going to the mountains for a bit. Y'all hold it down. You know, are these great awakened beings who they live these full lives, and whatever scrape of time they found, they were practicing. You know, and so many of us are not doing the work. We're actually not really practicing. You know, um, it's okay. Like, I think it's important to complain. I think complaining can be quite a radical act. I think it's Fannie Lou Hamer that said, sometimes you have to get sick of being sick and tired. You have to get tired. You have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think complaining is part of that, realizing that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And what do we do? What do you do? As Majai Satya would say, you have to consume everything. Consume it, or it consumes you. Yeah, yeah, you all let yourself cry. You know, y'all. Some of you were there when I had my epic breakdown a couple of months ago in Matara. I was just like, it was ugly. And I was just dragging myself through the practice. And you let yourself do it. You let yourself break down. Stop trying to carry everything and let it go and let the mother hold it. Let it go and give it to the mother. We do this every time we do Matara. We do actually do it in every practice, even with Medicine Buddha, right? It's just letting go and letting the deity hold it, letting the Buddha hold it. And what we're trying to bring about is a deep trust in the mother, or in whatever deity is central in your practice, right? When do you trust the mother to hold everything? Even all year, just connecting to the practice, right? Connecting to this like experience of the mother, and always like it's always this deep sense of being tended to. This deep reminding that like things are going to be okay. You know, being okay doesn't mean I'm going to be comfortable. you know, and being okay doesn't mean I'm going to die. Not die either. Is we have to like take out. We always think that we have to like continue living to be successful. That's not really what it means, because death is just this illusion, this door that we enter into, because the path continues.
Mhm.
We don't stop practicing after death. We just continue. So death is not an ending. So when I say that like people aren't going to make it, it doesn't mean that the work ends when you die, because quite honestly, there are a lot of beings who pass from this life and come back
Mhm.
to guide us and continue to help us through the work as they're doing the work for themselves. Mhm. Mm. Mm. There's a lack of integrity as well in the world, and I think we see that in the media. We see that with politicians. You know, I was telling. I don't know. I teach so much all the time. I just forget who I'm teaching to and I've been talking to. But I literally told someone that all politicians lie. I don't know if I said it on on a podcast or in an interview, you know, and I get that, you know. Oh, someone asked me. It was for an interview, and someone asked me if I could say any if what would be the solution to something like a more restorative kind of practice of politics, or how can our elected officials address trauma and violence and woundedness in a really direct way. I said, just tell the truth.
Mhm.
Tell the truth for yourself, tell the truth for the collective. And, that's not happening. you know
It's interesting though, because like that question, I mean, there's something so weirdly flawed about that question, because we don't need politicians to heal us
Mhm.
from trauma.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
putting that on them again is this kind of like shift away from our own agency. Like we don't need the politicians to heal us. We don't need the politicians to be our wisdom deities. That's this kind of like like old Tibetan thing of like handing your nose rope, like the rope that's in the nose, in the ring in the nose of a bull, to somebody else, like handing away your agency, handing
Mhm.
away your power. Um, I mean, I think there's something so healthy in just saying, yeah, all politicians lie,
Yeah.
and you know, that's part of their job, but to be effective, but to not project onto them. We talk about like sort like unreliable sources of refuge, and most politicians, there's some who have been great activists, who are
Mhm.
great activists,
Mhm.
but most politicians are not
Right.
reliable sources of refuge.
Yeah.
You know? Or political parties, as we see.
Yeah.
Oh, like I can't tell you, but all the weird thoughts of resentment that flew through my mind voting, and it's like two choices, and it's like this whole binary thing is
Mhm.
just, I mean, it's problematic everywhere in our lives, right? Everywhere in the way that we um, experience life, engage with the world. Just two things. It's kind
Mhm.
of crazy. Um, so just keeping that in mind, kind of going back to this, like way of addressing samsara by not giving other people the power. Um, you know, that relates to how we can feel well, or how we can feel empowered, or how we can feel connected, or how we can feel um, larger.
Mhm.
And the violence piece, yeah, I mean, it's like these Trump people are violent, and
Mhm.
I gave a bit of a Dharma talk just before this on protector practices,
Mhm.
and those practices are more about stepping into the intensity of what is coming up for us and what is problematic for us, and not picking up a baseball bat and hitting someone else.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
that kind of like bearing witness
Mhm.
to the suffer and the ways that we get like really pissed off and want to go out maybe and kick some ass and then quickly turn and look at that, and then explore how we can come into power in our practice
Mhm.
to overwhelm, and directly confront and disrupt those difficult emotions. And one of our big problems I've experienced in my life is how powerful externalization is.
Yeah.
Either externalizing, the person who is terrifying,
Mhm.
who it's like, okay, I want to go kick their ass,
Mhm.
or I regret the fact that I can't,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
please save me. If it's not a politician, then my boss or supervisor or
Mhm.
family member or person on the next rung of power. You know, recognizing that, I mean, the thing that we're kind of all up against is our own impermanence.
Mhm.
And if we waste time
Mhm.
externalizing, like we're just kind of giving our power away, we're giving
Mhm.
away our efficacy, you know. Rewrite the Constitution.
Mhm.
I mean, that should happen. Or, I mean, like, it's so crazy that, like, like the Continental Congress,
Mhm.
like, set everything up in like the 1790s, and then in like 70 years later, we had a civil war, you know,
Right.
and then like 80 years after that, the civil rights, like, and then now it's just like we're a pretty violent, messed up place
Mhm.
that just
Mhm.
cycles through violence all the time.
Mhm. I think it's heartbreaking for us to realize that so much of that violence rests within our experience. That so often the people that we're, demonizing and blaming, like often they're part of our relationship is that they're mirrors for us,
Mhm.
and it's hard to deal with that. You know, it's hard to hold space for that mirroring. That I am indeed so much like the people. We are actually very much like the people that we're fighting against because we're all human. We want to be happy and we want to avoid suffering.
Mhm.
But we're making different choices to do that, to fulfill those ends. You know, I get the drive and the desire to suffer less and to be happy. You know.
I think Rod should run for president.
Justin, didn't you say that you were interested in politics once?
I did say that.
It's past
It's
the
fine.
aspirations.
Yeah.
I was never good at politics. I would always run for like student council and class president. I would never get elected. I just gave it up.
Yeah.
I wasn't like popular or pretty enough.
I'm not pretty, but as I age, man. Oh, yes, and Brenda, you're totally right. Um, yeah, I mean, um, I do think we need to be realistic about like what frees us, and I'm sure that we'll see like, how many hopes dashed by Biden and Kamala Harris, and we just need to kind of be a little realistic about, just when you get to that level of power, you've pretty much compromised yourself most of the time. Um, it doesn't mean that everything is hopeless, but again, like I just like, you know, all putting in that work for ourselves, in ourselves, and investing in practice time, and kind of getting intimate with what's hard and how we suffer is so important, you know.
Mhm. This is, why for me ancestor practice becomes so important for me because that's where so much of my resiliency comes from, that my ancestors survived slavery and genocide, you know, um, and still created a culture of joy and thriving um, and I just take refuge in that, you know.
It's powerful.
I've been, some of my mentors have been people who have survived all kinds of like, particularly, mentors from other countries who've survived all kinds of political unrest, you know, and you learn from them, you learn how to continue living and surviving in conditions that are just impossible, and I've been really fortunate to be in a relationship with Holocaust survivors as well. It's like, how do you go through that, and still maintain,
Hmm.
yeah, this great trauma, but there's also the space around the trauma as well.
To still have love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And many of us haven't pushed ourselves enough into the space of just like deep, wide open expansion that holds everything, you know. Like I've just had to sit through so much intense heartbreak, that it's like it was almost as if it just felt like it was just ripping through me, and to survive those experiences, and to come out on the other end and to be out in the world and to say, you know what, if I survive this, I can survive whatever's coming. And Rinpoche, when I was in the retreat, he would say, if you can survive this, you'll survive anything. And like, he hasn't been wrong.
Mhm.
um, I know many of you you feel like, yes, the emotions, everything, the mental experiences are really strong, and they are, you know. But I just really encourage you to continue to do the work, continue to do the practice, continue to do the sitting, whatever your practice is, the praying, the chanting, the visualizations, just keep doing it over and over again, And for me, I don't know, I just got to this point where I just stopped thinking about trying to get anywhere. I just did it. I did the stupid chanting, like I did the stupid meditation, and I just kept at it because somehow I was still alive, and I just started to believe that somehow the practice was the reason I was alive, and you keep breaking deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into these layers, and you release more and more and more. You're like an onion, and you keep pulling back these layers. You keep doing that for a while, then you realize, God, I'm not where I used to be.
Mhm.
I'm not this confused, overwhelmed, terrified person anymore. I'm actually experiencing some space now. And that's a wonderful thing to realize. That to realize that no matter how much someone hates you, you can see their suffering. You can see that like they have never ever been taught how to be different than what they are now. And how fortunate I was to meet a practice that gave me a different way of being.
Mm.
And maybe I become an agent of change for this person. Maybe. I mean, people will be disappointed. People will be disappointing to us, but like I just continue to train in holding space for my own suffering and continuing to reflect on how hard it is to practice with my own suffering. And I let go of all the various ways I judge other people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I hold people accountable. That's very different. That's not a judgment. I'm asking you to do work, like to do something, but I know how hard it is. And I ask you to do it anyway. And moving through the things that might kill us and learning to survive or be a survivor, an elder, an ancestor. I mean, yeah. The elders that hold me are the elders that have had to walk the path that I'm trying to walk. Uh, and ultimately, too, you have to be willing to die as well to get free. You know, that's one of those questions you wrestle with. It's like, what am I willing to do to get free and to get others free? And that's where the Bodhisattva vow emerges. It's like, I'm going to do this, even if it costs my life. Pink Floyd. All in all, we're just another brick in the wall.
Yeah.
I still love that. That was a weekend night for me listening to Pink Floyd. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone.
And humor, right? I mean,
I'm gonna literally listen to that album again tonight.
that's right. Oh. Now you need to tell us about it. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I'm struck by in reading the text box is just how joined a lot of all of us are in this community because we're showing up because we have to. That's not because we want to. It's because
Mhm.
we know how we're suffering. We know that we're suffering. We know that we're not. We don't want to give up. And I think that that's such an important piece of this too. Like moving forward, Sangha is a
Mhm.
reliable source of refuge.
Mhm.
You know, and
Yeah.
how can we rely on each other the rest of this year, right? This calendar year. I mean, just because Biden gets elected doesn't mean like we're all of a sudden going to have a response to COVID
Right.
in 3 months. And we have like these holidays coming up where people congregate and all sorts of stuff. And um, like when it gets hard, like how can we support ourselves, together and lean and bend um, and share wisdom, you know like there's that other piece like that's kind of this weird like American fallacy is that like rugged individualism,
Mhm.
like we forget just how interconnected we are, and today's a really good example of like we're interconnected with all the Trump people in this moment of tension. We don't might not want to be, but
Yeah.
that's where this is. And we're not, the Buddha wasn't just somebody who just said, I'm going out alone to do this. I mean, we quest alone often, individually, but it's always in relationship to others,
Mhm.
and in community.
Mhm.
Yes, and we do have total chaos. Yeah.
This is such incredibly hard work. Just continuing to show up over and over and over again to the pain and then the messiness. You know, and it's exhausting, and this is why it's so important to have practices of care. And community. Sangha being one of those, but what else are we relying on right now?
Yeah, self-care. Well, peanuts are good.
What is this butter pecan ice cream rolling through? There's a bunch of Southerners in here. That's the problem. My family used to eat butter pecan ice cream all the time. I was like, this is not what I'm into.
You don't like
Mm, I don't like butter pecan.
it?
I just oh yeah, pralines and cream. Yeah, that's a little better.
Well, a little bit. Yeah. Mm.
Yes, it did. We did talk about ice cream. Yeah, everyone listened to that. We recorded it at 1:30 last night,
Hmm.
thinking that we were gonna. Well, we didn't really think that. We didn't think there was gonna be a decision, but we thought it would be interesting just to like record something in the middle of everything happening. So people think it was such a sacrifice to do that. I was up anyway. Yeah, 1:30 a.m. to record a podcast because that's how committed I am to people's liberation right now. The questions were like, "What are we gonna do, Lama Rod?" I'm like, "I don't know. Who knows?"
Brad, do you want to maybe begin to close us out?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, folks. Thank you all for being here. Um, we'll announce who's speaking next week. I have some ideas that may be a surprise, something a little different. Um, so as we prepare to close out, let's just do a little bit of grounding practice, right? Just coming into a position that's appropriate for us. And let's do some gratitude practice. So let's start reflecting on the ways in which we, despite of what's happening right now, that we're still the recipients of kindness and labor from countless beings right now. And turning our minds to the blessings, to the good things that are still happening in our lives and in the lives of others around us. Letting yourself be held by this energy of gratitude, just for a few moments. And in the space of gratitude, just share this energy of gratitude into this psychic space that we're all sharing. Really sending this energy of appreciation into the Sangha, into the community right now. And if you need a little bit of energy of gratitude, this positive energy, allow yourself to absorb, to breathe in, to drink deeply from this pool of gratitude that we're all offering into the psychic space. And you can breathe it deeply into the heart center. All right. So begin to transition out of the space now. And on behalf of the community, I dedicate this energy to the liberation of all beings, to both social and ultimate liberation. And may we get to this liberation as quickly as possible. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your practice.
Thank you.